Yep.
Is my audio still okay? I've just changed it.
Yep. Your
Rosie
audience
is
okay.
okay.
Perfect.
Where's
Thank you.
Rosie? Wait, is Rosie not joining?
Rosie, quick, say hello.
Hey, you can log in a different machine, no, and join us here in Zoom. You want? No, you're on mute. John is on mute. It's still on mute. Yan.
Hi, sir. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. You want to join us here in the Zoom link?
You want me to join? No, I haven't even done my makeup yet. I feel good. No, let John have his spotlight. It's okay, sir. I'll message. I'll interact in the comment section.
All right. Okay. Your
But I
choice.
can subscribe.
Thanks, Rosie.
Thank you po, sir.
Thank you. So, are we live yet, or do you have a moment?
We're live.
We are live. Okay, so we just wait for the links. Take it away, host.
Yes. Let's have a minute to share the link. Give you a second. Okay. Good afternoon, mga kakwentuhang cybersecurity. It's Friday once again. 5 p.m. na. So alas Pix Pro na. So we are happy to be back, no, after our last discussion last Friday with another very interesting topic, no? So this time we will be engaging on the role of digital forensics in crime solution. So medyo ano siya, no? Medyo high tech, but it is this is timely rin, no? Because right now, as all people are in our home, no, working from home, so umaangat din yung yung mga cases ng mga online scam or crime on the online space, no. But itong digital forensic na di-discuss natin is applicable din siya sa mga normal crimes na nangyayari and how we use the technology to be able to solve those crimes, no. And now with us, our very own Pix Pro member din, yung guest speaker natin. So a proud Pix Pro member. VP Mia, can you do the honors of introducing our guest speaker for today?
Yes, VP, sorry, VP Alex, and yeah, sorry, birthday mo na kasi. Advance happy birthday, VP Alex.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'd like to introduce today Mr. Jonathan Shorter. He is a member of Pix Pro as VP, as Mr. Chair mentioned earlier, and he is a founding partner and CTO of Astria Corporation in the Philippines and Vice President of Technical Engineering at Extero, who acquired the FTK brand 12 months ago. Jonathan has a Bachelor of Science with honors degree in forensic computing. He has worked in computing for the past 25 years. He spent time working in UK law enforcement high-tech crime units and has spent the past 13 years working specifically in digital forensics and incident response with corporations, governments, military, and law enforcement. As a seasoned professional, he has grown several teams of engineers dedicated to enhancing performance, scalability, and innovation in forensic labs. Our talk for today will consist of an introduction into digital forensics, its evolution over the past 13 years, and the very latest solutions to today's challenges faced by the community. He is keen to share his insights on the core skills that are valued for a career in digital forensics. So if anyone watching us today who wants to venture into digital forensics, now is the time, because he will be sharing and offering some tips, and he is looking forward to this very interactive session with his Pix Pro peers. So today we will be, let us all learn together as to what the role of digital forensics is in crime solution. So Jonathan, over to you.
Magandang hapon, mga kapigstro.
Magandang hapon, Mr. Jonathan.
Thank you for. I am just trying to find the share button. 1 second. Thank you very much for this opportunity, Angel, to work with the community and the rest of the team for inviting me. Hopefully that works. Is that a good resolution? Clear to see?
Yep.
Yes, John, we can see it.
You can see
Excellent.
it, John.
Okay. So roughly how long do you have for the slide deck? Because we were 2, now we've gone down to 1. So does that elongate the time for the deck slightly? Maybe half an hour, 30 minutes? Oh.
For your presentation, John?
Yes. So it's going to be about 20 minutes. I can make it faster. I can slow down.
Yeah. Okay. 20 minutes max. All right. So that we can still have time to entertain questions and discussions with our audience.
Okay. Please let me know if you want me to speed up or slow down. I'll take my prompts from you. So just a warning, first of all, just due to the nature of forensics, I'm not going to go into certain topics, but we might skirt around them, so that there may be a couple of words that you if you've got any children listening, you might want to take them out of the room for this conversation, just due to the nature of it. But we're not going to be going into anything graphic, don't worry. Moving on into an introduction, we'll talk about forensics, what my story was, how I ended up here, how the landscape of forensics has evolved throughout the years, and as was mentioned, I've been working in forensics for 10 years now, and things have significantly changed just during 1 decade. So I'm just going to cover how quickly things move. We're going to talk about the investigative challenges to corporations, to law enforcement, today's kind of leading edge solutions, and then also, as was mentioned, a career in forensics. So where did it all start? The scientist, Dr. Lockhart, I'm sure many of you have heard of him. He was like the Sherlock Holmes of France back in the day. He came up with the original principles of forensic science. And with that, his famous phrase was, with any contact between 2 items, there will be an exchange. So in other words, any contact and every contact will leave a trace. Back then, of course, he was talking about fingerprints, he was talking about glass being broken, footprints, but we can apply the same to digital crime. And when I say that, if you think you walk into your house one day, the door's partly open, the window's smashed, you walk into the entrance, there's spray paint all over the wall, you walk past your living room, everything's turned over, you walk up the stairs, room after room, it's been ransacked, and you get to your bedroom, the cheap jewelry's lying on the floor, and you notice over in the corner all of the expensive jewelry that was in the far drawer, hidden, that's gone. So what happened? You can look at it several ways. Was it an opportunist thief? Did they turn the doorknob and just find their way in, and just by luck they managed to find the family heirlooms? Was it the window? Was it somebody intent on breaking in? Did they smash the window, go in with the idea of stealing the most profitable items? Those are the more comfortable scenarios to think about. Could it have been somebody that was watching you? Did they have a key? Did they open it? Did they go in? They knew where to get the items, and then they went through the rest of the house to make it look like a burglary. And those are the questions that police need to ask when they go in to do an investigation. Now imagine same scenario, but you had CCTV in every room. you could follow the entire timeline of what happened. You have that overarching view of everything that happened. And that's kind of what a digital crime scene is like, because everything that happens on a computer has a date and timestamp. So if you know the right places to look, you can go back and you can replay what happened on that machine or telephone or iPad, and you can determine from that who was in front of the keyboard at the time that the crime happened, and exactly what they did. And to me, that's the exciting part of digital forensics, that we've got that kind of all-seeing eye. If you think about everything that you type into your keyboard, every thought, every question that you type into Google, everything you watch, everything you stream, everything you listen to, letters to loved ones, everything goes through that computer and it's kept. Even when you think it's deleted, the majority of the time it's kept. So, it's just a treasure trove for investigators. And that's, regardless of whether it's computer crime, which it was in the first instance, the digital forensics units were dealing with crimes that were committed using computers. They were regarding, sharing of inappropriate materials. Very much 90% of it was computer crime related. Nowadays, 90% of crimes, there's evidence on a phone. So, or in a vehicle. So when we talk forensics, we're not just talking about phones, laptops, hard disks. We're also talking about things like vehicle forensics, drone forensics. All of these, anything that involves digital data, is incorporated into this. So it can get quite exciting. There's never a shortage of devices to look at. So the crimes that are being investigated now, if you walk into a forensic unit, it can be homicide, it could be burglary, it could be some of the less pleasant attacks that happen. But all of these have evidence on people's telephones. Everybody has their phone in their pocket, either before the event, after the event, they've messaged somebody about the event, or just their behavior at that time. When you compare it with the rest of their days, their normal days, perhaps the phone was left at home, strangely, at the time the event happened, and that doesn't fit in with the rest of the pattern. So that's where, the true detective work marries up with the digital world. And I think for those that are in the forensic world, that kind of thought process is really gratifying, as well as making a real difference to people's lives. You're protecting the people who protect vulnerable people. So there's a lot in it for you. I pretty much covered it from a high level, but I guess the official high level view of digital forensics is that we're identifying, then preserving, examining, and analyzing digital evidence. So we've talked a lot about incident response. I think it was last week we did IT versus OT. So, each of these topics, there are very specific, they're niches, they're parts of IT, but they're a niche. And digital forensics is just the same. So that we are very much regulated by ethics, by the tools that we use, and also kind of procedures. We've got to make sure that everything is forensically sound. And by forensically sound, I mean that there's a chain of custody. Chain of custody means that when an officer goes out and seizes a device, or a corporation, they go out and they take the computer, they'll put it into an evidence bag, write the time and date on it, write the person's name, they'll take it through to the forensic unit. The forensic unit will break the seal, they'll take photos, they'll lay the equipment out, and as they're acquiring the data from it, what they do, they take a bit by bit copy of the hard disk. So they'll never work on the original crime scene. But like with a true crime scene, you wear the overalls, the mask, make sure there's no hair fall, you don't touch anything. Exactly the same with digital evidence. So we take a copy of it and we make sure that that copy is exact by using a hash. A hash value is a unique string of numbers that relates to that particular item. That item can be a disk or files, it doesn't matter. Within computing, we use hash values to be able to identify unique objects, and they're calculated based upon the contents. So with this hash value, we can follow the evidence in its digital form right the way through to the courtroom. So when it's presented to the defense, to the prosecution, this evidence we know is the same evidence that was seized in the digital forensics unit, that it was copied, and we can trace back every single person that had that evidence in their possession. So that's really important for our discipline, and that chain of evidence, chain of custody. So guidelines, I need to move on fast, it's 20 fast. So these are the Akpo guidelines, the Association of Chief Police Officers. These have been surpassed now, but they still very much form an international standard and gold standard as to how we should approach forensic investigations. No action taken by law enforcement agencies. Now, this was written by the Association of Chief Police Officers, but it's good practice for everybody, so I bring it up here. No action should be taken by anybody, and that should change data held on a computer or storage media, which may subsequently be relied upon. Okay, so that means when you arrive at the scene, you don't go, out of curiosity, start clicking around at pictures, emails, because when you do that, you're going to alter the last accessed. There's a timestamp, a date and time for the last time that image was viewed, and by whom. Now, if you're logged on as administrator, you might have destroyed the evidence that tied the person to having downloaded and viewed that item. In exceptional circumstances, where it's necessary to access original data or storage mediator, or storage media, that person must be competent to do so and be able to give evidence explaining the relevance and the implications of what they've done. So that, if you were to go to a person's machine, they've got BitLocker on it, you might know that you've got very little chance, if you switch that machine off, of being able to retrieve that evidence and to be able to image that drive. So it's important that you have the awareness that if you go in and you need to do a live investigation, you're fully qualified and you know the ramifications and can be competent to explain what you did. It might go to court, you don't know. An audit trail and record of all processes applied to computer-based evidence should be created and preserved, and an independent third party should be able to examine those processes. So everything needs to be repeatable. That's a really important phrase. And finally, the person in charge of the investigation has overall responsibility for ensuring that the law and the principles are adhered to. So that's now been replaced by something else in the UK, but I think that these four pillars of forensic assurance are still very valid. So how have things evolved? When I started in around 2010, we were kind of around here at this point. Can you see my mouse pointer? Yeah. Okay, so in the beginning, there was just a small collection of tools that the people in the community had written. So there would be a specific tool for imaging devices. And when I say imaging, it's creating that forensically sound bit-by-bit copy, either of a computer or a mobile phone. When it was the mobile phone back then, it wasn't unusual for us to have a camera pointing down at a Nokia, and you would go through and you would take a photo of every single SMS. Things have changed a lot since then. So nowadays we can access Android, we can access iPhones. You'll see in the news regularly that Apple have tightened their security, then somebody else has come in and been able to gain access. And it's a game of cat and mouse really for the vendors. After that then came dead box forensics. Now, by one-to-one dead box forensics, I mean that one officer or investigator would be examining one case on their machine. So they'd have a powerful workstation in front of them, and they would use that to import the evidence. And then one of the terms that we use in forensics is parse. We would parse the data. So we'd be able to read the Windows log files. We'd be able to look at the chat applications, WhatsApp, Line, WeChat, all of these different chat applications. We can extract the data, emails, operating system documents, folders. It can all be presented after it's been processed in a very coherent fashion. And a timeline can be created of chats between different people. Back then, though, when I first started, the computer forensics people were working very separately from the mobile forensics. So there was an awful lot of connections that were being missed in this kind of social network of people. And communications, you know, that might have gone by email to WhatsApp, and then changed communication methods. And those connections were missed because everything was kind of siloed into their own departments. So as a result of the increase in crime and material, people moved on to collaborative forensics, and that's where we brought in labs. They would have a centralized database, centralized processing engines, and the investigators were kind of, if you think of it as a hub and spoke, so a bicycle wheel, you've got all of your grunt, your processing power in the middle, and then you've got your investigators with their own individual machines, but all looking in on the same data. So that was collaborative forensics, allowing multiple investigators to work on the same case at the same time. Around about that time, then we realized that, you know, there was starting to be a more of a merge, a convergence between incident response in a corporate environment and digital forensics. And corporations, especially those that are heavily legislated and regulated, so food, drug, pharmacy, health service, financial authorities, telcos, all of these people have big burdens upon them to make sure that they keep the data safe, to make sure there are no insider threats, to stop hacking attempts. But they also might need to go into court and prove who was in front of that computer leaking that information. So that's where the two meet. And with digital forensics incident response, we provide corporations the ability to monitor and forensically capture data from every single endpoint within the organization. So they can go out and they can do these types of investigations, but without having to be physically present. They can reach across to a different office and collect data and perform the exact same types of investigations. And then we move on to the current state, which is the, you know, where everything, I've talked about this central processing, that's really heavy on computing power. The ability, when you're talking about terabytes of data and you think how small the WhatsApp database takes up, what small amount of data that is. And then you multiply that by the number of chat applications, and then you throw in all of the streaming services, and then all of the photos, which are incredibly high resolution nowadays. You might want to do optical character recognition. You might want to do language translation. There are all sorts of processing options that can take place, and they're very heavy duty. So now we're able to kind of scale up the processing and scale it down dynamically and in the cloud. So that's where I'm going with this, and where we are in the timeline. Am I okay for time, Sir Angel? I realise that I've got a few slides left here. Don't worry, there's not 55. Some of it's an animation. So I'll move through quickly on this bit. This is what a traditional lab looks like. You've got the centralized processing farm and database I was talking about. The investigators on the outside, and then outside of the firewall, you can maybe have subject matter experts that access the same data. They're just looking through a different tool, through a web browser perhaps, the most relevant tool for their skill set, but everybody's looking in at the same data just through a different window. So the challenges today, predominantly it's the amount of data that people are having to look at. So the proliferation of mobile devices and the increase in social media, the number of photos that people are taking, There's also a shortage of qualified investigators and reviewers. That's because some of these roles you need to be forensically trained. Others require really strong skills in IT, and we're at a point where everything is going digital. So all of the good resources that were out there are already being utilized. So where do we get the good talent from? We can take them from other people, but you haven't got these ready-made people now ready to cherry pick like you used to be able to. So this is an issue. We're short of qualified people. We've also got a huge backlog of data. You know, police are underfunded the world over. So there's a backlog of data, and we need to maintain a rapid response. There's a need for the speed to justice. This is not just to get the bad guys behind bars quicker. You don't want them out there whilst their machine's sitting in a queue for 2 years, and sometimes it's even longer. But also, you wouldn't want somebody innocent to be sat there, charged but not convicted for that period of time. So there's a big need to deal with this kind of challenge. And to give you some idea, this actually is true live data from a forensics unit that I work with. In March, they had 29 terabytes of data. In April this year, that had gone up to 36 terabytes of data. And in October, there are already over 40 terabytes of data. We can process data about 2 terabytes in 2.5 hours. So that's an important metric. That's with the very best equipment. We can go bigger with cloud by having multiple clusters of processing engines. It's very expensive to do that. There are needs to do that. Terrorism events, for example, will have an influx of footage from people's cell phones, from CCTV. People need to be able to scale up rapidly. But yeah, this is the quantity of information that these guys are dealing with. So how can we cope with the additional demand? Extra staff is one option. You can purchase additional on-premise storage and processing. However, keep in mind that capital investment also comes with power costs. You've got cooling costs. You've got the space required for this equipment, and you've always got to have enough equipment for the worst case scenario. So either that equipment is fully utilized and you've got no headroom in the event of an emergency, or you've purchased it and it's sitting there not being fully optimized. So ultimately, cloud scalability is where people are moving. The things that cloud brings to the table are this dynamic scalability, collaboration. It's possible for you now to distribute your investigation. So the skilled forensic investigators can be in Manila. You can have smaller offices in the provinces. They can upload the data through to Manila. You've got your trained digital forensic experts in Manila. They can process the data, and then through a web browser, those people in the provinces can access a very simple to use web interface. So that's solving the problem of distributing the work. So the forensic guys, they're just looking at the ones and zeros. They're looking at the complicated bits, you know, proving who was there at that time. But they're making those resources available to a much wider group of people. So many more people are looking through all of these pieces of evidence and marking them as important to the case or not important to the case. And they're distributing the workload that way. We're also heavily dependent now on AI, and this is exciting as well. So image recognition, automatic. You can search for a girl in a red coat. That will go through and find every girl in a red coat. You've got contextual language-based AI. The time that saves is incredible. If you were to look at video, you can do a search for weapons, and it will go through and it'll analyze every keyframe. I'm not just talking about one tool, all tools that are leveraging AI. This is what we can do. We can look for guns, and every keyframe within any video on that evidence. And that evidence will consist of a person's hard drive, their games console, their telephone, All these evidence items have been collated centrally, and it will find every single video that's got a gun in it. So for counter-terrorism, you can imagine that's fantastic. It cuts out 90% of the work, and they're left with a much smaller haystack in which to find the needle. Moving a bit more towards the leading edge, it's possible now to identify the sex and gender of people and the age of people because of the ratio of body parts. This reduces the amount of distressing material that people need to view, and that's very important. The health and well-being of investigators is a top priority. We can remove the majority of those images that have already been viewed and just show that there are 950 of the worst. They're graded by severity. 500 of them are the medium, 200 of the low, and then the investigator for that case only has to grade the images that have never been seen before, so that the ones that have been created by that user potentially. That information that they enter is then uploaded to a centralized database and is shared with the other investigators. So that's how we work smarter. I find these amusing. The snowmobile and the snowball. These are Amazon devices. I mean, we work with all cloud providers, but snowmobiles and snowballs are good ways for people to move their existing data up to the cloud. And by moving it to the cloud, they're plugging their equipment into this truck. It's just a racks and racks of hard drives. This truck then drives to an Amazon AWS data center, plugs in, and only at that point is the data decrypted. So, from you to the data center to your environment, everything is completely encrypted. So, secure transfer of large amounts of data to the cloud. And this is what the leading edge digital forensics looks like. So we can have kiosks so that your less forensically trained or less resourced people can be in remote locations. They can upload the data through to your central site, and then it goes up through the internet. And here we've got dynamically scalable resources that can automatically increase or decrease depending upon budget. I'm very short on time now, so this is reference material that you might want to go and look at. I appreciate I've got UK government forensic science regulatory stuff in here. This is very good to read though, regardless of where in the world you live. These are the things that are very important at the moment to add on to the PACE information. And then it's important for the validation and processes that we do, staff training, competence, etc. I'm going to skip through these. These are just the, I'll share this afterwards in case anybody wants to know what tools we put together. Ultimately, this is the final piece of the presentation. So here we have the arrest of the subject. So the person is arrested, the telephone is seized at the kiosk. The device is imaged, so we take the bit-for-bit copy, then it gets uploaded, and the data is collected by the API. You'll see at the bottom right, the scalable processing engines are going up because there's more demand for them. They go up and down as required. Then a deeper forensic investigation can be carried out by the officers in the digital forensics unit once the information's been processed. Processing continues, though, in the background. If any child sexual exploitation material is detected, then people are warned. So the investigators prepared. Perhaps they're not even authorized to view that material at that point. Support is offered by the digital forensics unit, and then review is complete. And you'll see that the scalable processing engines come back down and start saving money again. I'm going to pause there, Angel, and before I talk about a career in digital forensics, I just have a slide on this. Should we have a discussion about the state of forensics?
Well, we can proceed to if we have questions and discussions. No, I'm the forensics, the digital forensics that I used to know is. It's already Jurassic compared to what you just presented. Now, during the time when I was still practicing digital forensics. It was so different compared to how you guys are doing right now. Right? My one of the common questions that we are always faced off, is the integrity of the digital evidence. Since you guys already involved the cloud, how is that presented during the court trials? How is the chain of custody there?
Yeah.
How do you prove to the judge that within that chain of custody there was an API, and there is a, to me, as a, if I'm on a defense side, it seems to me that I have more issues to be raised against this new process, and create a cloud of doubt on the integrity and the credibility of the digital evidence that you presented in court.
And that's a great question, Angel, because that has been what's been holding everybody back. Everybody was fearful of moving into cloud forensics. There was in the discussion between IT and OT, but it was talked about the fact that you would have these air-gapped environments with the SCADA controllers in. So within the forensics unit, probably as you've seen, people would be air gaps, and by air gaps I mean that there would be no connectivity between the forensic network holding the evidence and the outside world.
Yeah.
So nobody could access the sensitive material. Nobody could manipulate the data. Mobile phones, for example, when they're seized, we put those into what's called a Faraday bag. And the reason that we put it into a Faraday bag is because it will prevent any data or anybody from wiping that phone. A Faraday bag stops radio waves coming in and out. And I know of a case where that didn't happen. The people handling the evidence didn't know how to handle it properly. The device was put in the forensics unit. It was plugged in. The first thing the device did was contact Apple and do a complete erase on it. So it's important to have that physical layer of security around things. And in order for us to be able to leverage the cloud, we worked with the Home Office in the UK, with the police force, and in the US they have the GovCloud. So there are special environments for law enforcement to use now, whereby with the governance on this slide, so ISO 17025, which is basically, it's been adopted by the forensic science regulator, and it suggests that the provider shall have the ability to demonstrate that any tools, techniques and methods used are fit for purpose. So you've got the validation element of the tools there. So within that process that I showed you, there are regular checks, automatic checks that will process a piece of evidence that is known prior to processing. And at a regular weekly interval, this piece of evidence will be processed, and we will ensure that the results that we receive are exactly the same as are to be expected. So that goes to your point about checking that the tool is working correctly. And that is part of, having repeatable processes and results is very significant in this. But in terms of the overall checks that are done here, so the kiosk down here at the bottom, this is where the evidence is actually imaged. So we do the bit for bit copy here, and a hash value, or MD5 or SHA-1, as those are different types, different algorithms used to create a hash, but a unique value is assigned to that piece of evidence at that point. That is followed all the way through this process. So as it goes up to the file upload server, again, that hash is checked to make sure that not a single bit in that evidence has been altered.
You calculate, John, you calculate the hash on the image file, correct?
On the image file, yes. And that image file will represent an entire hard disk or an entire mobile phone.
Yeah. So, that's the in the traditional way, right? It's very easy to it's easier to convince the judge that the evidence, the digital evidence presented came from the suspects or the subject's hard drive, just by showing them the calculation of the hash of the original hard drive and the forensic image copy, right? And that it came from that. But in this case, because it's already in the cloud, how do we bring this to the court? How do we present the end-to-end story from seizure, from seizing the asset, and then imaging the asset, and then processing the image file, indexing of the files within. You mentioned earlier that you can already search for the weapons, and then weapons will come out, and that's amazing. Because the indexing that I used to know is just doc file, PDF file, Excel file, image file, and then we do the processing from there. But in this case, it's really gone up the cloud, right? So my concern is focused on how do we convince the judge and do not allow and prevent the defense lawyers to create a cloud of doubt within that forensic digital forensic examination procedure or process.
Okay, so the components that we're using here in AWS, Azure, or wherever are tried and tested. It's the same processing engine that we're using there that we've been using for decades. We've been so I'm putting an Extero hat on now, and Extero acquired FTK 10 years ago, but there's a 30-year heritage in forensics there, right? So we can draw upon that. It's court-cited software the world over. Every forensic unit that you will come across has FTK Imager. It's free. Everybody uses it, right? So this technology is trusted, and it's the same technology that we're putting in the cloud. And we make sure that the environment and the methods these days are validated. That's what was missing with the PACE guidelines. It was that the methods and the processes involved and the way that the staff were using the tools, none of that was benchmarked. But here we can do it. And we have an assessor in the UK that will ensure that people are doing this in the right way, so that things are defensible, so that they're unbiased and repeatable. So we still follow the same principles. We're still using the same components. It's just that now we can leverage things like APIs, application programming interfaces, to manipulate the environment now, as well as the components. So as well as the software being controlled, we can control the hardware that it's sitting on. We can ask Amazon AWS to give us 20 more machines for the processing, and at the end bring it back down. So at the core of this,
on the litigation aspect, if I were on the defense side, what I'm gonna ask you is the integrity of the API. If the API that's running there, how sure are we that the API is functioning as designed, and there hasn't been any incident somewhere that someone was able to compromise the API, and we just don't know that the API was compromised. So how, and that might, if that cannot be proven, because the burden of proof will be on the person that is using the process, the new process. So how are we going? I mean, I'm seeing an added layer. I'm seeing an added process for the prosecutor, for example, to prove the integrity of the. So
Okay.
Have you been subjected to that kind of question in court, John?
Absolutely, and these are the questions that defense lawyers will ask. So it's really important that you've picked up on it, and these are questions that come up. You know, these are the low-hanging fruit that people can go after. You know, in the courtroom. So how can you validate that environment? So everything is fully audited. That's the first important piece. So within the AWS or Azure environment, every single connection is monitored, logged. Every single piece of data that is touched within a case, that is logged. It's logged. Who touched that piece of evidence? What did they do with it? Did they label it? Did they bookmark it? Did they hide it? What's important to keep in mind is that because we maintain everything in a forensically sound container, and these are .ad1 or .e01 files, so logical and physical copies. I won't go into the difference, but because these have the hash values, that evidence should never, ever be changed. That evidence that's brought in, it maintains its hash value. So at the end, when all of those chat messages have been reviewed, when all of the pictures have been highlighted, you can print a report. That report can contain a full user audit trail of exactly who's touched everything. That's at the product side. Also, you have the hash values. The hash value will match what's in the kiosk. So right from the start to the end, you know that the court knows that not a single bit of data on that drive has changed. And so that's how we can prove that the evidence being presented in court is forensically sound throughout the entire process. Now, in terms of the environment, that's the extra layer that you're talking about that we're introducing. Some may say an extra layer of risk if they're not aware of you know the thought that goes into this process. So there are additional security steps that are taken. You know, there's multi-factor authentication. There is segregation in the same way as you would have IT and operational technology. These are private clouds that you can use. So you can hire your own environment. It's not like anybody else can get through to this environment. So it's still your internal team that are connected through a virtual private network, a secure connection to the cloud, but the cloud is your own. There's no way to permeate through that. So it's an extension of your internal environment.
I think John, what you're saying is whatever happens in the in any of the system or hardware, because you are processing a forensic image which is impossible to modify, impossible to manipulate. So regardless if the system has been compromised, regardless if the API is hacked, no, anyone still cannot inject or change anything on the image file, on the forensic image, right?
Correct. However, if somebody had set this up incorrectly, they didn't know exactly what they were doing, it would be possible, as you say, for, you know, on somebody's own environment, maybe somebody does manipulate that data, but then the hash values aren't going to match. And that is immediately going to be a red flag that this evidence shouldn't even get to the prosecution.
No, but that only means that the evidence extracted did not come from the legitimate forensic image.
It just means that one single bit of information has been changed, and that could have been through a bad copy from one system to another.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have a question here.
Okay.
From Rodel Plasabas. Can have people from AWS Azure to testify? Well, I don't think so. I mean, they have nothing to do with it.
No, they provide the environment. However, there are certain standards. AWS do have their framework for good development principles, and there are certain industry compliance regulations, FedRAMP, HITRUST, SOC, that people comply with. Those are US regulations, but there are, each country has their own, and it's a way of ensuring that the data is well controlled. I have this slide up, and I'm just going to very, very briefly just say that the Section 23 control of data, that's about the forensics unit having procedures within its management system to ensure that all necessary information is recorded accurately, maintained so that its authenticity and integrity is not compromised, and is retained and destroyed in accordance with the forensics unit's retention and destruction policy. So it talks about minimizing the risk of data loss, data corruption, demonstrating that results are reliable and analytically sound, and protection steps will be tested by sampling of key data. So that's the second one. I like is
okay.
Sorry, yeah. You can look.
We have another question. From Jennifer. Hey, congratulations, Miss Jennifer Tan. Just was announced earlier that she is now the chapter president of Philippine Institute of Cybersecurity Professionals National Capital Region Chapter.
Congrats, Jen.
Congratulations, Miss
Jen.
So sabi niya, she said, very interesting topic, Mr. Jonathan. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. I'd just like to know from you though, how do we balance information protection and accessibility where there is possible contention as to data privacy during a forensics examination?
It's a very good question. So we need to segregate here corporate investigations and law enforcement investigations. Law enforcement, pretty much, if you're breaking the law or suspected of breaking the law, then the police will have a right to look through that data. Of course, if nothing is found and it's classified as no further action, the police should be destroying that information. They shouldn't be retaining it. In a corporate environment, if the evidence is on, and this is why it's important to make sure that you have the right IT policies in place, because if you have a policy that says that work devices must only contain work information, you shouldn't be using personal email on a work laptop, then everything's good. If somebody's broken that regulation, they've kind of put themselves at risk. But it does raise a good point that now we have to think about, within companies, we have to think about regulations, compliance, governance, risk, and this is where forensics comes into play as well. But we can use these same tools to be able to carry out data inventories on the environment. So do you really know where all the data is in your organization, where all of your customer data is, all those different data points, where all of your account information is, who's got what on which desktop? There are servers, there are mobile devices, BYOD devices. So we can use these same technologies to be able to carry out a data audit. And only if you've done that preparation, if you're in risk of a data breach, only then can you respond correctly. And that's in both in terms of data loss. So if you lost any of those things, your accounts, your HR, your payroll, could you continue as a company? I don't know. It would depend on the company, but I think not. But also, the right to be forgotten, people asking for their information to be deleted. This is actually a very useful way of carrying out a complete inventory of where people's data is. And not only with the corporate software, not only can you do the forensically sound collection, but it enables you to take an additional step. It allows you to remediate a problem. So a document may have been leaked within the organization, somebody sent it to the wrong person by mistake. The HR department, the legal department, they can leverage this. They can access the same interface. They could search the entire corporation, find that document, wherever it is, whoever's shared it to who, no matter which cloud repository it's in or Exchange server, and they can remove it, securely erase it, and it's fully audited.
John.
So I hope that answers the question.
Yep. I'd like to focus on the career aspect because as you mentioned earlier, there's not that many who are into digital forensics, and in especially in the Philippines, where there was a time where only the National Police and the National Bureau of Investigation and EPLDT had a digital forensic laboratory where we also had our own trained digital forensic examiners. But like cybersecurity, there's very few who are into this profession. How is the financial offer to digital forensic examiners?
Okay, so great question, and that is a.
How much is your wife paying you?
Maybe I should explain that my wife is my boss at Astria. So she did help me with a slide deck. So it's a good question, and you need to decide when you're going into the career, and it's never too late to change careers. By the way, I made the move into this 15 years ago. I was around 30. I'd been working in IT, and I found it kind of soul destroying that no matter what a good job I did, I was still at the mercy of Windows, Millennium, Wi-Fi in its early days, and everybody just wanting to throw the equipment out of the window, no matter how well I'd set it up. So I read a book, and I want to share these people are interested. This one, Traces of Guilt by Neil Barrett, that's really what piqued my interest. And there's some excellent true war stories in here of what forensic investigators have gone through. It talks about I don't know if you know about the Gary Glitter case, but it was very famous in the UK. So it talks about the ins and outs of a number of crimes and how they were solved by this guy in the early days of forensics. This is the other one that I would recommend for anybody wanting to get in. It's Casey's. I learned from this myself when I was at university. Casey's Computer Crime and Digital Evidence in Computer Crime.
What year was it published?
Oh, this is second edition. I did look before this, and the third edition was produced in, I think, 2012. So the core principles in it are still very relevant. As every new operating system becomes available, the locations change of where we look for data. As new versions of WhatsApp and WeChat come out, the databases change. This is one of the challenges we have in forensics, is just keeping up with all of this change. But the career path really is something that you would choose depending upon whether you're in it to make money, and there's nothing wrong with that. Is that you have to do what's going to make you happy. So are you going into the forensics because you want the money, or are you going into it because you're quite happy with your life, but you feel that you want to give something back, you want to do something for the community, you want to be able to make a real impact to people's lives? Do you want to be at the coalface, working on those investigations and putting people behind bars, because every single child's life that you can make a difference to, that you can improve, that's priceless, right? So
what are you offering? Are you offering a service? What or solution?
Me personally,
No,
Oh,
your
Astria?
company.
Astria.
Because
So
because we now have managed cybersecurity services. Everything is on the service side, and
Yeah.
it's for example, if our organization requires a capability like yours, instead of buying our own solution, right? What are you offering in your company?
and they'll identify issues that people have or organizations have, whether it's in legal governance, risk compliance, whether it's within data privacy, if it's forensics, if it's incident response, but also on the Astria side, what we're doing is bringing all of this knowledge that we've gathered from Western procedures, processes, regulations, and successful projects, bringing those and being able to use them in a way that can be helpful in a humanitarian way. So we're wanting to work with charities. We have a program where we will assist charities that can't afford some of the investigative tools and be able to offer training as well. So, it's bringing these ways of helping deal with some of the quite traumatic crimes that are taking place in the Philippines at the moment, using the best of breed tools and experience to help the regulators bring in the right laws, to help law enforcement to be able to deal with things better, but also corporations. We can work with single investigators, we can work with national companies, telcos, banking, etc., but also multinational. All of this stuff is scalable to a global level. So we'll help identify what the regulatory frameworks are that people need to comply with. We'll recommend the correct tools for people to use, and we'll provide the education in how to use them. So the process is securing, successful convictions, and we have centers of excellence that we can offer people training from. So I was speaking to Rosie, my boss at Astria, and we do have some free training as well and certification for FTK Imager, the free tool. But there is a training certification that we could offer that Xtero would provide, and we'd like to offer that out to people in the community as well. So
yeah, we'd like to extend our schedule a discussion with the training, because the new process that I just saw just made me realize that I need to read more again about digital forensics. And Vice Chair is here, our chairman for the Vice President for the training and events. Vice Chair,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts?
No, it's I think it's not just about starting a career in digital forensics, but also boosting our current career by understanding better digital forensics, right? So I think it's good for everybody, and really appreciate if we can schedule sometime next year, as we're lining up a series of technical trainings for the rest of 2022, that we can include that in our schedules, Jonathan. So we would be gladly working with you on this. Yeah,
we'd be very grateful for that opportunity, Mr. Visaya.
Mhm.
Thank you. So yes, if there are any follow-on topics, I've struggled really to go from very, the intro through to some quite deep concepts. So if we get the opportunity to expand on this, I'm happy to do any further follow-up sessions that you'd like.
Mm-hmm.
So just in regards to my tips that I would offer to somebody wanting to move into it, I would say anybody starting in any IT related field, regardless of whether it's forensics or cybersecurity, incident response, make sure that you understand the basics. So if you nail your knowledge of data storage, networking, computer architecture, you understand what binary and hex are, and maybe do a bit of scripting. You know, you've got to enjoy these things. I wouldn't go into this field if you don't get a buzz out of making something work. You know, there's a lot of hours that all of us on here, I'm sure, have sat in front of a computer, you know, just trying to solve a solution. And that, you know, when the light bulb goes, that's the joy that we all get out of the work that we're doing. So make sure that you choose something that you enjoy, but that you work on these core functions, and then learn about emerging technologies. So keep abreast of IoT devices, cloud, virtualization, containerization, databases. It's an endless list. We're in such an exciting stage of development in what's happening. You know, artificial intelligence. You know, start reading up on these things and stay current with it. You know, it's fascinating stuff.
Okay, John,
Yeah.
we're we still have questions to make, questions to ask,
Let's go.
and let's VP Alex. We have Ayuda tonight.
Yes, Mr. Chair, actually with the good heart.
Maybe before we because we are already 10 minutes past our
Yeah.
schedule.
Very good.
Would you like to throw the questions now so that
Okay, so we have with the good heart of our guest speaker, no? So we have also Ayuda for today, no? So team, can we post the first question? So remember #PixPro. So question number 1. So if you listen to what Jonathan discussed, so what does a Faraday bug do? Wow, that's a hard one.
What does a
No, Jonathan, this is not for you. This is for our viewers. That we will give.
I'm sorry.
you're supposed to pay. You answer it right.
Yeah, this is our help to the viewers. Okay, what does the Faraday bug do? So #PixPro and then your answer. Any answer now?
I believe VP Alex, we have a winner.
Correct answer. Okay, so the Faraday bug do is to the block RF signal. So that's the answer.
Right.
Right.
Can you help
Very good.
confirm it's AD Castro? Yes, congratulations.
Okay. Question number 2, BBB, do the honors.
Question number 2. What is Lockhart's principle? Oh my.
Lalim.
Very hard.
No answer?
It's to do with actions and interactions.
Contact between two items. There will be an exchange.
Yes. As acceptable.
You win, Angel.
No, not me. Dave Lariosa.
Dave Lariosa.
Lariosa.
Yes. Congrats.
Congratulations.
Let's move to the next
Alright,
question.
Mr.
Question
Dave.
number 3. So name 2 challenges facing the forensic investigation. What are the 2 challenges that they encounter in forensic investigation?
VP Alex, for tonight, no? We don't only have 3 questions, not
We
just
have
3,
5.
not just 4, but 5.
Wow, that's good.
This is 2,000 each. 2,000 each.
Correct, Mr. Chair. Correct.
Wow, very generous.
Yep. Thank you very
All right,
much.
so Leo answered. Shortage of qualified investigators and reviewers within offices. And COVID-19, I need to maintain rapid response. Is that
Yep. Acceptable,
No.
Mr. Chair.
no? There's another one. Number 1, unprecedented levels of data coming from all crime types and data sources. And number 2, shortage of skills.
Yeah.
John,
Correct.
Correct.
correct. Okay. So Eddie
There was a choice
Castro.
of two.
Yeah, Eddie Castro got the
I would say
correct
yeah.
two
Congrats.
answers.
Congratulations. Kasi number 4, Mia. Let's run it.
Question number 4. What is the free FTK tool that most departments use?
All right. Dali-dali lang.
That one is
Basta libre.
I can give a hint.
Okay, Leo answered access data FTK imager. Acceptable, right?
acceptable, Mr. Chair. Acceptable.
It is Xtero FTK Imager now, I must say, with my corporate hat on. But yes, congratulations.
Yep. Okay, so
Congratulations.
Leo Paris.
Okay, and our final
Go.
Our final question, number 5. How do you ensure a forensic copy is exact? 1 word, 4 letters. Oh, yun na. Additional, ano pa yun, ha? Clue, ha? 1 word, 4 letters.
With letter.
Starts.
Parang breakfast lang.
Hash, sabi ni Rocky.
Alright. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's the correct answer.
Alright, naunahan ni Rocky. Hash. Yup. Galing. Okay, VP Alex, let's wrap it up because it's already weekend.
Okay. Okay, again, we are wrapping this session. So another interesting one. Thank you, Jonathan. Again, I mean, I have only 1 word for the discussion today, Mr. Chair. Wow. A big wow. So I was really stunned when Jonathan is, speaking about these technicalities in digital forensic. And actually, I was really interested and put this on my bucket list. So for those of viewers who are here who wants to, do a shift in career, maybe you try digital forensic. VP Sheila, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's very exciting. I have actually reserved a lot of questions for Jonathan, but maybe for another day. Thank you, Jonathan, for joining us once again and for sharing for the Ayuda. Happy weekend to everyone.
Okay, Mr. Chair, do you have something final words to say?
Just similar to what VP Sheila said. Thank you. We are thank you to Jonathan and of course to Rosie, the boss of Jonathan.
The real boss.
Don't worry, Jonathan, you are not alone.
Can I just say thank you to everybody as well and the
Thank
community
you very much.
as well. Thanks.
This is really something, and like Alex, I'm also looking for doing the training, not to execute, but to understand as per our vice chair, because we can never guide our people and teach our people if we ourselves are clueless, and knowledgeless and ignorant to the practice. So I already sent a message to Rosie to send me a package for training. And as Vice Chair mentioned, hopefully next year we can find a budget to ask you to your team to do a training for our members for free. I mean, we will pay. Our members will take it for free. Something like that. So thank you, John, and thank you, Rosie. Back to you, VP Alex.
Thank you very much again, John. So we are wrapping up the session for this afternoon. Again, mga ka-Pix Pro, maraming salamat sa pakikinig at pagsama sa amin. Hanggang next Friday, again, it's a weekend. Happy weekend sa cybersecurity. Happy lang, walang weekend.
Walang
Weekend.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye.
Jonathan, thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Jonathan and Rosie. Bye.
Rosie, thank you.